All right, and hello everybody. So today is something I've been waiting for personally, and hopefully you have too, on the Mini FT36C, the future, if you will. They're calling it like an MMS now. Either way, not seen many of these, but they're all the same. We know that. So today's video, I've waited 20 hours for. There's your hint. But as of yesterday, playing around, we've officially reached the 20-hour mark. So I'll basically go over what I have done maintenance-wise on this in 20 hours, failures, fixes, repairs, and I'll spatter in some of the projects we've done with it. So just a quick short. So this is the Future FT36C. Went over that. I have four attachments for it. This first one is one I built just to move trailers around and lift items. Then you have your typical bucket. I then have my forks that are mini skid steer specific. Then the last one over here, you can't really see it, but it is a land leveler, and honestly it doesn't work with this machine. Hopefully you've seen that in our previous video. So I'm just gonna sell it. It's not working for how I want to do it, so we'll figure that out. So yeah, let's get going on to this. So the first thing I want to talk about is the failures that I've had in the first 20 hours of owning this machine, using it for my personal projects. And the only failure or breakage, whatever you want to call it, that I have had is the tracks. So there's a couple of videos, I'll link it here, maybe do an overplay of it. But basically when I first had this machine, the right track specifically would fall off very frequently and rather annoyingly. So it didn't matter what I tried to do, turn very shortly, turn sharp, reverse the track to turn, kind of do like a zero turn, if you will. Nothing seemed to help with that track falling off. So one of the last times I put it back on, oh man, maybe 13 hours ago, I made a short of it. That's the last thing I can remember. But when I did that last, I had the right tool to secure that jam nut that they used to tension the tracks. So I'm kind of leaning towards that was the fix, making sure it was there. And I definitely did over tighten the tracks. I didn't have much play at all. I stretched them, if you will, knowing that they're new, they're going to stretch in, and I didn't want to keep messing with it. So since I have done that, they've not fallen off. So I've been pretty happy about that. There's maybe one or two times that it got kind of close to coming off with like I was over here on the hill. I had something heavy on the front. I think I was moving concrete, and if you kind of like tried to turn tightly with a heavy bucket, instead of the track skidding on the ground, it would dig in, and then that's where you saw the most potential for that track to pop off. But other than that, that is the only issue I've had with this. I've used it, I've abused it. In some of the videos you can see this frame's kind of tweaked from trying to dig with it, and especially just a flat bucket without teeth. I've never checked the oil since the first time I changed it 20 hours ago. Engine oil or hydraulic oil. I've never checked the air filter. The only thing I've done to this was put gas in it, and a lot of gas. This thing is thirsty no matter what you do. It always seems to burn, I don't know, half a gallon an hour maybe, at best, or at worst. I'm not sure how the verbiage there should be, but yeah. So gasoline and grease have been the only two things this machine has taken. So I am very happy with that. I mean, I've definitely done some modifications to it, like some of the previous videos. With the lights, I added the counterweights, and then the initial service, changing the fluids, making sure the hardware was tight. That's as much work as I put into this. Other than that, come out here every time I want to use it. A little bit of choke starts right up. I can use it. Battery's never had an issue. The hour meter is very accurate. It's only running when the key is on, as you can see in that first part of the video. So I have to say I'm impressed from the durability wise. So I'm hoping that it continues to be a useful and problem-free machine for me. Now I've not used it commercially like maybe some of you guys have, or some of the other people that have more issues with them, but you know, I wasn't easy on it either. You know, I'll see, I pushed it to the limits. Okay, am I gonna run out of power? Am I gonna start like, you know, doing burnouts with the tracks? Typically I found I'll do burnouts with the tracks before the engine starts to die, so we'll get into some of that here later on. But yeah, first 20 hours, very happy with it. Excited to see what the next 20 hours bring. So I'm gonna go over it, basically do like an inspection, look at everything that people have complained about. So we'll look at all the rollers on the tracks, we'll check the engine oil for the first time, see if it's burned any, we'll check the air filter, and we'll check the main hydraulic reservoir, and we'll see what type of state this machine is in. But before we do that, we gotta get the puppy some belly rubs. Oh, gotta get them belly rubs. Here's your chili rubs. All right, so we got the belly of the beast open. I'm gonna take a look in here. Looks pretty good. Not a whole lot of anything really noticed. There's definitely some dirt down in there, and I'll show you guys a little closer here in a minute. But let's get to this engine oil. So the only way I figured out how to check your engine oil is have the arm all the way down. You can open up the bonnet here, the hood, whatever you want to call it. And there you go. So if you remember, one of the first videos I did with this machine was changing out all the fluids, getting rid of the Chinese fluids and putting Tractor Supply Chinese fluids in instead. So this oil looks pretty good. Let's dip her. So can you guys see that? Let's see here. Can you see it? So I'm right about middle. I really don't remember if I filled it to the half or left it in the middle. I'd have to go back. That side was on the paper towel. But like looking at it, it doesn't look bad at all. I mean, it definitely looks a little more dirty than new, but for having 20 hours, I'm honestly kind of impressed. So we'll stick her back in. So yeah, bring you guys back down in here. You know, like I said, it's kind of hard to see, but there's some dirt down in there. You're always going to have something. My horn's down there, but that's my own fault. I took a bolt off to try to get the land plane lower. It didn't work out, so got to fix that later. But yep, there's your engine oil dipstick. And then for your hydraulic oil, right down front here. So you can see plenty of oil in there. And again, with that oil, it still looks pretty good. Just a slight yellow tinge to it. And that's kind of the color it comes with. So going beyond that, we have the puppy. You've lasted 20 hours, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. So let's go to the other side since she's hogging that side. So here on the tracks, you know, they're gonna be hard to show you, but they have loosened up a little bit since I've done them a little bit ago. And what I'm gonna do now is jack this up and we'll inspect all the rollers. So we got some light here so I can help show you guys see what I'm seeing. So the first thing I kind of want to show you is these lugs on the tracks. Now as you can see, if I don't make the shadow, that right there at the tip of my finger, that's part of the metal lug that is in these cleats, or drive lug, whatever you want to call them. So you can definitely tell these tracks have been abused. I can't, there you go. In there you can see, down in there, the metal pad that the drive cog engages on. So each one of these is kind of like a U shape, and it allows the drive cog to input power into your tracks to move your machine. So basically each one of these drive lugs is pretty much butchered up pretty good. Like that one in the back, you can kind of see all the rubber's gone, peeling away, and then pretty much the only thing left is the metal lug. And you can tell how that's kind of evident by some of the deformation on this rear idler roller. So I definitely think that's part of what makes these tracks fall off for a lot of people, is that these wear out pretty quickly, and then you just got like the metal on metal. It doesn't work as well. You don't have the tight tolerances you're supposed to have because all this rubber is gone, and it just bangs, pops, booms. And I'm sure you can hear that in some of the videos. Like, if we come over to this one's very bad. There's nothing left, it's just the metal. Whereas that one still has the mold, port, whatever you want to call it, lead in on the drive lug. So beyond that, coming down here to the rest of the track undercarriage, this roller is a little hard to check with the tracks on, but I can just barely shake the track back and forth and it's very smooth. I have no concerns about a bad bearing back here. If we get closer again with the light in there, you don't really see any grease coming out, especially on the outside. It's a little harder to look on the inside, but same story there. You can just clearly see a lot of the deformation in that wheel, which I think I attribute also to the gravel in my driveway and turning on that and getting the rock stuck in there. So moving on from that, we have our idlers down along here. Again, very same story. While they are while there's some stiction in them, there's no grit to them as you roll over. They roll over nice and smooth, they're quiet. You can feel the smoothness in them. You don't feel like the rollers bouncing around or any jitteriness in them. And that's true for all of these. Well, like I said, there's some of the stiction still. They all free spin pretty good. Then this front one, that one again is like the back one. It's kind of hard to tell, but as you jockey the track back and forth, it feels very smooth. If a bearing is going out, you're going to be able to feel the grittiness or jumpiness, whatever you want to call it. You'll be able to feel that when the bearings are going out. So I'm very confident on the right side of this track here that I have zero issues in any of these rollers. So just got transferred over to the other side here. Now the first thing I noticed is the belt is not as tight as the other side. The slack here is a little bit more, but it's still kind of within where you kind of want these after the tracks are broken in, I would say. So real life here, let's see. Same thing, just a little bit of stiction, but no grittiness. Yeah, the three of those are in pretty good shape. Now for this rear one, you can kind of see that, as long as Puppy doesn't bother us here. That little bit of movement I do get out of the tracks, I don't feel anything concerning. Still nice and smooth. You can't tell with the stiction as much, but you can tell if the bearings are bad. It's not going to spin very freely for you at all. And then looking in here, you don't really see any grease leaking out the front or the rear. Everything seems to be pretty good. The drive lugs are in the same kind of shape, pretty worn down, pretty roached up. I do want to find another set of tracks, but it's not the priority at the moment because these are not giving me enough issue other than a terrible ride. So it is what it's gonna be. You can kind of see in here, this is where your idlers always roll. I don't know, I don't remember from new if these molding marks were all the way through or not. You can definitely feel a little bit of a lip from where the idler rolls compared to the outside, but just going around, there's nothing concerning. So now the next thing I want to do is kind of look for leaks on this machine. So early indication of problems are going to be your leaks. Looking here on the drive motors, I'll get you in around there. I don't see any inklings of leaks forming, new or old. You can tell it's nice and dry in there. There's a couple like wetter spots kind of like right in there, but that's from the grease falling down from these other pins here. Hydraulic line, same thing. We'll check all of our connections, and there's no signs of a leak. The only sign of anything troublesome is here for the auxiliaries. Funny enough, I've never used them. Haven't purchased an implement for that yet. But there's a little weepage here. So I don't know if this is just not as tight as it needs to be. I've also never washed the machine, so who's to say this isn't factory residue. But based on some of the other dirt buildup, I would say we might have a potential for a leak there. But otherwise, looking at the machine, that's the only leak or concern that I've seen. If we open it up in here, there is some moisture on top of our tank here, but I took this off that screen just to kind of see what was in there. Haven't found any debris, so that's good news. And then you can kind of see there's some dirt buildup down here. But if you also remember in the first video when I refilled this, it was miserable and it made an absolute mess. So it's kind of what I'm leaning towards, that all this residue in here is from that first initial fill. And then I just got to wash the machine. So then same thing going in the back, looking around the engine. A little bit of moisture there between the, I don't know what that would be, the output shaft output cover, the main block, but no concerns. And then maybe a little bit of wetness there on the motor at some of those seals or seams, sorry, but again, nothing that I'm even remotely concerned about. So yeah, I mean, that basically does it for things that me personally that I would be concerned about. Any of these bearings going out on my tracks or hydraulic leaks not caused by me disturbing the system. From the hydraulic hose standpoint, you might be able to find some spots where the hoses are contacting, but there's not even something that your fingernail can pick up from as far as rub marks. This one's probably a little more worse off, but you can still see the numbers are fully intact, so really not anything to be concerned about. Pins and bushings, I don't have enough hours to really figure that out. I do personally don't believe these are going to last super long just because they're nothing special. It's just, especially on the faceplate here, it's just steel. There's no extra reinforcement, kind of like they have here on the arm. You can see that extra washer in there. So personally, I don't believe it's going to last thousands of hours, but it'll last plenty long for me. So the only issue that I have on this machine currently that I haven't figured out how to remediate is this buildup. So no matter what you do, if you're doing any type of dirt work, this packs in with dirt, gravel. Right now it's mulch, and when you rock your bucket back, it just compresses against your arm here, and no matter what, it just builds up in there to the point that you have to come in here with like a chisel and a hammer to break it all out. I have thought about trying to alleviate that by blowing a hole through there, but I'm concerned about reducing the strength of my quick attach plate. So this one's a really, if I get out of the sun, yeah, that's a really good example of everything just packed in there almost like concrete, but it's not concrete. So, and as you can tell, I've definitely not skipped the greasing. There's plenty of grease down in all these joints, especially the lower ones. It drips out of the top, goes to the bottom. I'm just using a cheap hardware store grease, nothing special. Cooler here, no, what's that? That's from the arms here. Again, no issues with the cooler. I use the fan at pretty much whenever that temperature gauge gets above 40 C. This guy, oil temp. The only reason I know it's 40 C is because when it's 90 degrees plus out and it still says 40, there's no way. There's no way that 40 equals 90. You get the gist. It's in Celsius, small conversion. That 40 is a little bit above 100. So I've yet to figure out if this fan switch it's just me. I haven't figured out if the fan switch runs automatically or if it's up to the operator. On the hottest of days when I've been running this outside, 90 plus degrees with the fan on, I've never seen it go above 50. So 50 degrees Celsius, the oil is really not that hot, so I can't imagine I'll personally ever figure out when without really playing with the wires. So, but yeah, overall 20 hours, not that bad, not too much wear other than the tracks. So another thing I kind of wish they thought about a little bit more on these machines, and I'm still trying to figure out a mod for it, is my lifting straps. Got 2 shackles and 2 straps, nothing crazy. It's very convenient to have them with the machine versus running back and forth. So far, this has not been any issues to me. I can still get my hands in here, do what I need to while holding on for dear life, being shaken to death. And then, I can get these out pretty easily. I thought about putting some type of basket here in the front, but other than making like a custom one that kind of fits nice and then being able to take it out when you open the hood, haven't thought of a good solution there. But I mean, one thing I would say is I only open this hood when I'm actually working on it, and in those 20 hours that I put on it so far, the need to open it have been 0. The only time I've had to open it was when I did that first oil change with you guys. So maybe the basket up front's not a bad idea. You just have to clean out all your accessories before you get in there. So, and then the last gripe is going to be this platform. So some of the nicer machines from like Kubota, New Holland, Wacker Newsom, they have some type of spring-loaded platform, where this one's definitely not. I put some of this, tread grip on here for when it's wetter, and that's worked out great. I still want to try to put maybe a stall mat on here to try to help with the vibrations, but the biggest complaint I have is when you're on here and it just starts bouncing, it drives you crazy. And the only thing I've been able to do is go on my tippy toes and really try to use my knees as shock absorbers, but that's not good long term, so we'll have to figure that out. I don't want to completely change it up, so might be stuck with it, but we'll see. This filter, a Zynga filter. Got it from the local hardware store at Paul B's there. You've heard me talk about in the past. I want to install this. Still got to figure out some of the fittings for the inlet and outlet and a hose plan for it. So I figure when I get around to installing this, that'll be when I change the hydraulic oil. That way we start with fresh and we see what the filter actually does. So, and slightly curious if I just let it go, if anything actually might happen, because like I said, so far it's been a trouble-free machine. Can't ask for more than that. So, and then one thing I know I didn't touch on it is the power of it. I have not noticed any reduction in the hydraulic power. It's just as strong as the first day I got it. So overall, I'm really happy with these, especially this specific one. It's a 14 horsepower motor. I don't think you need the 23 horsepower motor unless you plan to run a lot of rotary attachments with your auxiliaries. So that's maybe where having that higher horsepower motor would be beneficial for you. Something like a stump grinder, mulcher head, rototiller, things along those lines. The higher horsepower engines typically get you that third pump, where that third pump is dedicated for the auxiliaries, and that's something you would need. So I do want to try a post hole digger, trencher, one of those auxiliary attachments on this to see what it does. But if you're an individual who's not using those types of attachments, maybe a grapple or like a blade, otherwise non-powered attachments, that 14 horsepower is more than plenty. I found that I will either tilt the machine, if you're using like the breakout force, you'll end up tilting the machine over before you run out of power, or if you're trying to push, you'll end up basically doing burnouts on the tracks before the engine starts to draw down. So that is the 20-hour review here on the Future FT36C. I don't know how many more hours I'll put on it here yet this summer. I got more driveway projects to do, so that'll probably be the bulk of it, and then maybe a little bit of drainage work, so we'll see about getting a trencher. But until next time, take care. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what type of issues you've had with yours if you have one of these, what type of common failures you've had, things you've done to fix it, and we'll see if I can't find them early on this. So So let me know. Till next time, take care.